according to the Masoretic text, that's the Jewish Bible in Hebrew, Deuteronomy chapter 32 verse 8 reads very, very traditionally, according to the children of Israel, according to the number of the children of Israel or the sons of Israel. So here is the text in Hebrew. Here's the translation of the text. And again, the name of God that is used in verse 8 is Elyon. Without the word El, without the word God, but we have here the name Elyon, the Most High. When the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the children of men, he set the borders of the peoples according to the number of the children of Israel. That's according to the Masoretic Bible. So according to this reading, we don't see any reference to the sons of God. Do you see it here? No, it's not in the Masoretic text. Look up here in Hebrew. Again, we have the name Elyon right here, Most High. Again, you look up this expression, this sentence, Lemispar bnei Israel, according to the number of the children of Israel. No reference to any divine counsel or to the spiritual realm. It's not evident in the Hebrew Bible or the Masoretic version. But, a very important but. So, according to the text of the Dead Sea Scrolls, we have a different reading. And I opt for the reading of the Dead Sea Scrolls here because it makes much more sense. Let's read it. So this is the reading of Deuteronomy 32:8 in the Dead Sea Scroll known as 4Q37, and it reads, "Sons of God, Bnei HaElohim," not sons of Israel, but sons of God. And here's the translation. When the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the children of men, he set the bounds of the peoples according to the number of the children of God. Isn't that an amazing revelation? We see this when we compare the ancient texts of the Hebrew Bible. We have the Masoretic text, and it's a very good version, it's a very good text. In most cases, there are no discrepancies between the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Masoretic Bible, but here we have a very significant variant reading of Deuteronomy 32:8. And interestingly, friends, if you open your own Bible, you will find various readings. Some would opt for the Masoretic reading, Sons of Israel. Others would opt for the Dead Sea Scrolls variant. Look up what you have in your own Bible, and let me tell you what I see in my own Bible here. So for example, here I have the New Revised Standard Version, the NRSV. I look up chapter 32, and I look at verse 8. And what do I see here? Very interesting reading. Let me read the text, the second part. He, it's a reference to God, the Most High, when the Most High fixed the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the gods. You see? So which version the NRSV opts for? It opted for the Dead Sea Scrolls. And here we have a note, okay, saying that according to the Masoretic text, okay, it's reading the Israelites. But according to the text of the Dead Sea Scrolls, as well as the Septuagint, we see the sons of God, children of God or sons of God. So it's not just the Dead Sea Scrolls attest to that reading, but also the Septuagint. So we have two ancient versions that attest to the supernatural realm in Deuteronomy 32:8. And we know it's very clear from Scripture who are the sons of God. The divine counsel, the spiritual realm. And even if you don't consider it from this perspective, just read the text with the sons of Israel. Would that make much sense to you? when the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the children of men, he set the bounds of the peoples according to the number of the sons of Israel. Does that work? Does that make a lot of sense? Not really. Why? Because in Genesis chapter 11, there are no Israelites yet. The Jewish people have not even emerged. So the reading that we see here, that's scrolls, the Qumran reading, and the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, the reading Sons of God makes much more sense. Theologically and contextually. And now, some more evidence on Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 8. So what are some clues that reveal the correct reading of Deuteronomy 32:8? Point number one, the major clue, is that Deuteronomy 32:9 contrasts God's disinheritance of the nations in verse 8. Let's see what we see in verse 9. With verse 9, we have no variance. It's all the same text. It's very clear. For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob is the lot of his inheritance. Deuteronomy 32:9 speaks of the nation of Israel, the children of Jacob. They are the portion of God. They are the inheritance of God. Then it makes perfect sense that in verse 8, it speaks about the nations. Verse 9 speaks about Israel. So there is a contrast. God disinherits the nations, but yet chooses his own people, the nation of Israel. That's the first clue. The second clue, although 70 members of Jacob's family went to Egypt at the time of Joseph, we read about this in Genesis and Exodus, the backdrop to Deuteronomy 32:8 is most likely the table of the nations recorded in Genesis chapter 10. The 70 nations of Genesis chapter 10 were given under the rulership, the spiritual dominion of those sons of God, Bnei Elohim. By whom? By the Most High God, the God of Scripture, the God of Israel, Elyon. Interestingly, the table of nations in Genesis chapter 10 lists only 70 nations, and Israel, of course, is not included. There were no Israelites then. There were no Jewish people in Genesis chapter 11. And here is a quote from Dr. Michael Heiser on this specific point. Because Israel alone is the Lord's portion, she was not numbered among the 70 other nations. How is it that the number of the pagan nations was determined in relation to an entity, Israel, or individuals, Jacob and his household, that did not yet exist? And I think this is a very good argument. It does make sense. And another important reflection on Deuteronomy chapter 32, verses 8 and 9, I would like to read it out loud. Deuteronomy 32, 8 and 9 harks back to events at the Tower of Babel, an event that occurred before the call of Abraham, the father of the nation of Israel. This means that the nations of the earth were divided at Babel before Israel even existed as a people. It would make no sense for God to divide up the nations of the earth according to the number of the sons of Israel if there was no Israel. God called Abraham for the specific purpose of creating a new nation, Genesis chapter 12. Deuteronomy 32, 8 and 9 is the explanation for why Israel had to be given the land of Canaan. It did not exist earlier when the nations were allotted. Why it became the Lord's own nation to the exclusion of all other nations. But the flip side also comes into view. The other nations have their gods because the Lord allotted those gods to them when he severed his own relationship to them.